Yet will be in a
There
second.
we go.
I just have to title these things.
Yeah, we're live.
Will be in a second. Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. We were fighting in the pre-show, and then realized we lost track of time. And Lee was like, "We ought to do this on the air. Why are we fight clubbing and secrecy?"
Wasting
Um,
perfectly good content.
Exactly. It's
all right.
ratings week. We gotta do the sweeps. We gotta sweep this.
So, all right, Lee, you want to summarize our little debate thus far?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about a statement that John Mueller had made, and it seemed to indicate, and why don't you read the statement because we can just start from there. That was a
Yeah.
great statement.
All right. So the headline is Google authentication for SEO tools and personal crawlers. And the quote is from John Mueller saying authentication for your personal crawlers and SEO tools is going to be more and more of a topic.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit and said that sounds like you're going to have to pay to play as a tool provider, and you say, well, you got the API now, but things change with that num equals 100. Things are up in the air for tool providers to say the least. And so it looks like maybe they're going to bring back a way where you have to register your tool and probably pay a premium to get access to the search data. That's
Yeah,
my guess.
I don't mind the paying a premium. What I mind is being segmented in a way where they can tell us one version of truth and then deliver a different version of truth to actual human beings. And so that's the problem I have right now is there are two different marketing stories and they've been giving tools the bullshit story and now they want us to pay for the bullshit story and I don't trust them. So I want to see what the anonymous public sees and Google wants to deny that. And so that's the problem. If I can't see what human beings out in the world are generally seeing in some sort of anonymous way, then I can't get any marketing value out of that. I don't want to pay for the lies. I don't want to pay for them. I just want truthful data. And
Well,
I do,
let's clarify something, Ted. You don't want to pay for Google's spin or what Google deems you should see. So that's the problem, is that Google's going to have some truth that they're going to want to give you, and they're going to expect you to pay for it quite well, I'm sure. And your point is that's I don't want your version of the truth. I want the non-authenticated brand new user. I
I
don't want.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to
Ted's mad because, Charles and I, when we search, we're seeing one version of the results, and Ted's tool is seeing a completely different version for the same search. And he's like, well, this is bullshit. Why am I paying for this inaccurate data? I want to see, like, he wants the tool to be like a human being, what they would see.
I I want to go into the crowd out in public and watch the podium with my own eyes.
Hmm.
But what I'm getting is you can't be in the crowd unless we let you in the crowd. But what we'll do is if you pay us money, we'll tell you what the guy at the podium said. And the problem is, in the past, those communications about what the guy at the podium said haven't been truthful.
It's
And
it's
so,
it's like what the news channels do. They'll
Hmm.
they'll film someone saying something, but then you'll get chevrons and scrolling at the bottom, and then you'll get people talking over it too. You'll get it's like, no, I want to hear what this person's saying, not whatever else you want to add in there.
so you know what? the reason why marketing tools have been so useful is because we could get into this anonymous context. We could get a proxy. We could go incognito. We could make an account that's brand new and searching for the first time. And those abilities to see the data in the way that a human being searching a keyword for the first time would see the data, that is the truth. You know, seeing that, oh, this is a new person, let's show them an ad. Oh, this is a new person, let's show them an AI snippet. I don't want to see, oh, this is a bot. Let's remove all the expensive features and we'll take the ads away and we'll show them 10 blue links. But that's not the opportunity we're presenting to human beings. Human beings saw 4 ads and an AI snippet. And so that's the lie. And I don't think Google should start charging for the lie. I don't know. That's my
So,
opinion.
Yeah.
so that's good stuff. We also got into a little conversation beforehand about the impressions
Mhm.
and how the impressions, what, beyond page 3, they're all just bots. And Google's philosophy was, well, it's all just bot traffic, so you don't need to see that stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think that's true. I think because when you have you know, mobile, you've got sort of an infinite scroll thing. So you are getting, impressions, you are getting people that will, let their thumb do the work, or sometimes on desktop as well. It's not just, there's a lot of that. I will not dispute that, but it's not entirely without merit, because even if it is bot impressions, it is still information about where I'm ranking. If they take that away from Search Console and I can't see that I'm ranking position 22 now because they're only going to show me the top 20, I don't know that there's an opportunity for me to do some things for my keywords and move them up and put them in a position where I can get clicks and sales and all those kind of things.
And
A
that's
100%. And that's what I started doing at least 10 or 12 years ago. So when it became clear that rankings, so the problem with tracking rankings is obviously it's not always accurate. Ted's shown that a million
Mhm.
times, but also it's hard to scale. When I was working in e-commerce, we would have literally tens of thousands of keywords to track. And I did use a tool and we did try tracking everything, but it was just scaling wise was impossible. And I found, well, wait a minute, a better barometer for rankings is impressions. If my impressions are going up, now I still have to dig into it. If your impressions go up or down, you have to dig into say, okay, is it because you're getting better rankings on a couple key terms? Are you getting more key terms, more pages? There's a lot of pieces that go into that barometer, but it's a great barometer I found as a way to understand, are we doing better or are we doing worse? Are we going in the right direction or are we going in the wrong direction? I didn't care what kind of traffic it was, whether it was users, whether it was bots, whether it was, didn't matter. But it told me as a site, was I going in the right way or not? And I saw that again with again an enterprise site when we worked on various enterprise sites. You weren't doing all the ranking. The sites were too big. There was too much going on. There was no way you're going to rank everything, and there was so much weird long tail going on that a ranking was pretty much worthless. But impressions were an amazing barometer. Again, a barometer, not a KPI, a barometer for are we going in the right direction or not. And losing that data, I think, is a real loss because um,
Hmm.
I think it was very short-sighted of Google to take that data away. I think I know why. I think it's been very clear they're trying to limit the bot traffic. They're trying to save themselves money. But yeah, I found impressions to be a great barometer, and it's a shame that that's gone.
And Clint was talking about this last week. I think the sad thing is if I can't see it and the rank trackers, don't work like they used to, then it kind of forces me to go and scrape 3,000 keywords in the space and then go, build a bot or, series of bots to go get that data out of Google to find out here are the 40 keywords that I'm ranking somewhere for. It creates more work for me, but it creates more resource problems for them as well. It's just easier to leave you can screw with the rank trackers and block the bots and all that sort of stuff, but leave the data in Search Console. that's helpful to an actual person.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's this concept of in the game and out of the game with Google. And so even though the pages 3+ traffic was largely SEO tools and bots, it was giving good signal that we are in this game, and if we try to do better, we can improve, versus we are not even in the game to play it. We're not ranking anywhere. And so you need this concept of knowing if you're in the game and effort could help. And that's been taken away.
Exactly, Ted. That is exactly right. I'll have a new domain or a new campaign or a new page, and am I even in the top 10? Am I getting any visibility, or am I page two, or am I nowheres to be found? Um, and now I have a lot more limited way of being able to see whether I'm in the game. I think that's a perfect way of saying it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if headless Chrome and incognito Chrome and unseasoned accounts are all seeing a version of the results that's, got stuff removed, and then logged in Google users that are likely to be human beings see a different version of the results that presents different channel opportunities. And we're playing a game of how well do we rank for bots and tools. We're not playing the same game. We're not playing the game of how well do we rank in front of people. And I don't want to play the marketing game of how well we rank when bots look for us. And that's how it's being segmented, in my opinion. Um, it's yeah, it's not good. Um, and I find, people wonder about my technology change because I make SEO tools. So I try to measure things. I try to use scientific method. I conduct experiments. Gary Iles is on the record. An actual quote of his is, some SEOs test things and we love them. He gave SEO testing a verbal endorsement at one point, and we can't do that if they're sabotaging.
Mhm.
You know, we,
I would suggest they really don't love it.
yeah, I know.
They
It's
might say
probably a
they love
lot.
it, but
But, again, that's the behavior. That's why I don't trust them. That's your data is only as good as we trust it, and we don't trust you.
Mhm.
So there's a problem, Google. Um, and it's of your own making. This isn't a we made your data bad. This is a you are doing nefarious things, and it is corrupting the public's ability to believe anything you say.
Yeah. Do either of you know? I mean, this statement that Mueller had is the first thing that comes close to a statement by Google that I've seen about the num equals 100 and the search console stuff. I haven't seen or heard other people talking about any sort of explanation or rationalization coming out of Google. Do you
yeah,
guys?
it's still pretty quiet from them.
Quiet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
smacks
I
of error.
I feel there are probably two forces at play right now on Google's end. So my theory, and all of this is my opinions and my theories. None of it is, proven. I don't have insiders leaking Google's actual uh, intentions and motives. So all of this is speculation based on what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, what little I'm hearing from Google. I think the two primary forces that are at play on Google's end are the fact that the new AI features are really expensive for them to deliver at scale. So I think that's one problem they're having. And Google, before AI, was having lots of growing pain handling scale. Like we saw the shrinking of the primary index, and it got smaller and smaller and smaller because the internet got bigger and bigger, and search volume kept going up and up. So they always had a problem of scale, and now they have a problem of scale plus expensive new features. And then the other thing I think they're seeing is that in certain sectors, in certain search markets, they are seeing massive departures of past traffic leaving for AI solutions. So, for example, prior to I used to search for libraries and uh, how to do certain things in programming and how to solve certain kinds of bugs. That was all search traffic, and I don't do that anymore. That died. It simply went away. And so they're seeing that in a lot of places. Maybe not enough to cripple them or anything, but enough to worry them, enough to scare the shit out of them that they see the direction it's going. And so I think they're scrambling too, uh, but I don't think they're thinking things through. Historically, search executives have been absolute morons, and they've totally like injured and neglected their own evangelists. And it's just tragic. It's just tragic that it's going that way. And they've been, cowardly about innovation. They've been deceptive about transparency. And I'm just, I don't know. I don't know.
So having worked in several enterprise places, not as large as Google, but close. Um, here's what this feels like to me. And I have no proof, I have no data. It feels the same. When you'd be in an organization, the CEO or CTO or somebody in the C-suite would come up with an idea. And it wasn't just an idea, it was, we have to do this because of X. My hallucination is that somebody in Google said, we have too many bots crawling our site, and we have to stop that because it's costing us money. Somebody saw a dollar sign someplace, it scared them, and they said, we have to cut this budget. We're making this change. And they prescribed a change down the chain. And everyone below them knew it was a bad idea and said, it's a bad idea. We don't like this idea. Please don't do this. And said, nope, this has to happen. No one's going to argue with the whoever.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, no one's going to argue. Well, Ted, they won't say it's a brilliant idea. They'll just say, okay, if you want us to do it, that's what we'll do. And then they implement it and nobody says anything about it because you can't argue with them. Because if I argue with Ted, who's in the C-suite, that's it. I'm out of the organization. One way or the other, I will be out. Um, but I don't want to agree with it either because then number one, I have to defend his crazy idea. Or when it's shown to be a bad idea, now I'm part of the group that evangelized it. So everyone, they do it because they were told, but they do not talk about it. They definitely don't support it, but they also don't talk about it in any way, shape, or form so that no one thinks they were in support of it.
Yeah, but they
That's
still
what this
get
feels like to me.
blamed because they're the people that coded it. So
Yeah.
there's no escape, you know. The saying is shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
And so that happens in corporations. And so yeah, the people that think they're dodging a bullet in some way aren't.
But
All
them
right.
trying to is understandable.
So where does this kind of leave us? Well, I think there's a whole side of SEO uh, best practices and tools that Google can't disconnect. And so I'm kind of pivoting my pivot to focus on those, automating agency workflows and figuring out impressive ways to handle a growing roster with new capabilities and technologies, ways of automating audits. And so there's a lot of things that can be done that Google has no say in. But the problem is determining how effective those tools are, how advantageous those solutions are, requires some form of results measurement. And so, yes, I can build things. And I know there's a certain percentage of people out there saying, well, Ted, just pay for the Google API. And I don't think that's a great answer because I think that's headless. There's no features in there for logging in with a Google account and seeing the context that that logged in Google user would see. Like that feature capability doesn't exist in their APIs. So whatever they're showing you is akin to incognito headless, and that's not getting around the problem. That's just giving Google money for the bad side of the answer.
Mm.
um, yeah, so I don't know how to solve this yet. And I don't like that.
Yeah, we don't know yet whether we have to solve it, because if Charles is right, and this is a goofy idea that comes down, has repercussions, and they have to roll back some or all of it, then it was just a bumpy period. So right now, there's still no pronouncements coming out. So we sit, we wait.
Well, I think the world needs to talk about how Google search has turned to trash since they got rid of 100 search results, because that's how I see it. So, and hopefully you see it that way too. And maybe we can bully Google into putting it back. I'm not going to hold my breath though. Um,
I was just gonna say, don't hold your breath, man.
yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. So we actually have some other topics to talk about. So we have another case of Charles talking about Google leaks. I mean links or links that are leaks.
Or just
I don't know
general
about
leaky
leaks,
stuff.
but definitely talking about links. I'll share my screen. All right. So I'm going to keep talking about the Search Central Live deep dive until everyone in the comments starts screaming at me saying, stop talking about this. And then I'll keep talking about it just for a few weeks more. Because I really feel like I missed out. Um, I really feel like I missed out. I've gone down quite a few rabbit holes, reading as many blog posts as possible. What I've been doing is looking for the screenshots. People take pictures of the slides. I'm beginning to suspect there could be a really good business. You just go to conferences and take pictures of all the slides, and then you recombine them in order. That might actually be a good model. Um, I've remembered years ago there used to be some company that would send people to the conferences and just take notes. Um, with AI, you could take some really good notes now, I would imagine. But anyways, so I'd like to talk a little about linking, but first, does your client search console look like this? So here's a great example. Somebody where we have 1.9 million not indexed. You can't even see the green. You can just barely see the green sliver on those charts. So this is if you go to Google Search Console and you go to the indexing pages report, you'll see a chart that shows Google shows all of the URLs it's aware of. And if you have the bulk of your URLs are not indexed, that's a problem.
Mhm.
Often I've found, especially with e-commerce, not just all e-commerce, it means you've got pages getting indexed that you don't want indexed. Now that sounds like a weird thing. It sounds like a lot of people are like, oh, I want Google to index everything. You don't want Google indexing everything. You only want Google indexing the pages that you want to rank. If you and you don't necessarily want to rank all your pages, and there are whole sections of your site you probably don't want Google to even see. So I'll stop for a second. Ted and Lee, have you, if I won't do, you don't have to out yourselves, but have you seen sites like this?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this being one of the problems that you see, when I did the tech audit, a few weeks back. But I have seen a lot of sites like this, and usually what I find is I end up referring them to Fight Club episodes where Ted has talked about infinite crawl problems with ecom or similar, because they're not all ecom, but even non-ecom sites can have those sort of crawl issues that spit out URLs like, it's candy. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I often see something like this, and the little sliver of green is the socks category, and the big bars of gray are the infinite crawl of the socks category, and none of your other categories got indexed. That's
right.
usually how I see that. And so if I see something like this, and especially with numbers like this, because uh, I'll go back and I'll say how big is your website, and they'll be like, we have 5,000 products and 26 categories. Well, they have 22,000 indexed and almost 2 million not indexed. So Google thinks this website is absolutely massive.
Yep, yep. So
and it has
let
quite a duplicate content problem.
it could have lots of problems, but so
Yeah.
overall, I'd like to talk about how do you get into a problem like this, and then how do you fix it or how do you stop it from ever happening?
Well,
Uh, yeah,
I was going to say that a lot of people are in this problem now because they had previously fixed it with the URL parameter tool in the previous versions of Search Console. And Google retired that tool because they believed the problem didn't exist anymore. And then it came back for everyone, but they didn't know that that happened, and they don't remember when they originally fixed it, and the guy who fixed it no longer works there. And so a lot of people are in this because there was a fix and Google just made it go away.
exactly. So let's talk about some ways to try to stop this. Um, I'll give you guys a quick spoiler alert. None of these ways really work that well. So you can try using the robots.txt, using a disallow in the robots.txt. The problem is Google themselves say that if a page gets enough links, they'll still crawl and index the page. Plus, uh, it will still try to crawl the URL, and the URL may still show up in the index, and Google will still keep trying to crawl it regularly, even if it's being blocked. You'll just get millions of pages where Google says, "Yep, it's blocked. We know about this URL. We're getting this URL, but it's blocked." Sometimes folks will come to me and say, well, I'll just use my meta robots. So I'll use my no index. That keeps, that'll work. The problem is meta robots just keeps you out of the search results. Think of it as a no serve. I think John
Mm.
Mueller one day said it was like a no display, I think is what he called it. Google will still crawl the URL. In meta robots, there's a no follow. And it says, do not follow the links on the page. If you don't specify the rule, Google may use the links to discover those linked pages. I'm going to test this out again. I've used this in the past, never in a test environment, but I've used this in the past and it does not seem to work at all.
That language is interesting.
Yes.
I'd be interested to know where they pulled that from. So it says use the no follow value if you'd rather Google not associate your site with or crawl the linked page from your site. But
So
that
Ted,
kind of
you jumped to the link attribute. So we have two. So here's where part of the confusion occurs. There's two no follows. There's a no follow in the meta robots, and then there's a no follow attribute to a link. And Google, they're used in different ways. Now Google implies, and I pulled that line for the link attribute out of Google's out of their web dev docs last night because I was like, what exactly does Google say? And if you don't want to associate, so that was something I've always known, or crawl the linked page from your site, I've never seen it work like that.
And I don't think this no follow behavior as described was in the context of internal links. I think it was in the context of external links. If
So
you
I'd
don't
have
want to be associated with user generated content links, you can no follow them and it won't be an endorsement from you to them. But that would have no meaning on a link to one of your own pages. Of course, you endorse your own pages.
So that's a good point, Ted. When I was looking at it, and I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look at it again. The meta robots, I'm pretty sure specifically discussed internal, external. The no follow for the link attribute, I don't think it said one way or the other. So to your point, they may be assuming you're referring to external links because that's the context of the page. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't think they explicitly said
Yeah.
that.
And
So
But like I said, in both the no follows, definitely with the link attribute, I still see Google crawl these links. Um, but with the meta robots, I've not seen that in the field data, but I now I'm having found their specific saying that they won't try to discover links on those pages. I'd like to retry that to see, all right, does this actually do what they claim it does? I don't think it does.
so here's the interesting thing. I'm going back to something that you said a little bit earlier. So if I have a widget page and my widget page has 5 different colors that it comes in and 5 different sizes that it comes in, each one of those 25 distinct links points to all the others because those other attributes are available there to select from. So by virtue of, by virtue of that, you would never, Google's never going to not crawl or not, try to index that because it's getting a lot of links from a lot of similar pages. Does that make sense?
So my point overall with this slide, this individual slide, is that yeah, you none of these things stop Google from crawling.
Yeah.
I've had so many people come and say, "Oh, can I use this? Can I use that?" And in my experience, and again, I do want to, I got to look at some field data first before I even try testing it, but I will run an actual test because now I'm getting really curious because to Ted's point, the wording in here is very specific.
Mhm.
Um, None of these things, in my experience, stop Google crawling, even in the slightest. They don't even discourage crawling. It might as well not even be there.
well, it costs too much to run some sort of check to say, should I crawl or should I not crawl? It's actually going to be a lot cheaper for Google just to say, I'll look at it and we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. And the no index works very, very nicely to keep you out of the index. The robots.txt works very nicely to keep Google from crawling the contents of the page, but it will still it'll still discover the URL and it may even index the URL and it may go ahead and just crawl the page anyways. And for the meta robots no index, it will still crawl your page regularly. It'll probably still give value to the links that are on that page. And you'll still have this problem where Google's crawling pages you do not want it to crawl.
Yeah, and
So,
some of that, you could say don't crawl anything that uses the faceted navigation, text that's in the URL. And Google may honor that or try to honor that, but then somebody out in the world uses a URL shortener to one of your faceted navigation result
Yeah.
sets. Google sees the shortened URL. What do? They crawl it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, even if Google wanted to honor the robots.txt as strictly as humanly possible, I don't think it can, because it's just not engineered in a way to enforce it.
So brings us back to the Search Central Live deep dive. There was this slide. Now, I've seen versions of this before, but in this slide, they discussed what links can Google follow? Where can they extract a URL and when can they not extract a URL? I'm going to blow this up a little bit for us. And so interestingly enough, there's a question in the chat. Someone said, did any of you test if unlinked plain text URLs pass PageRank, pass some PageRank? I don't know if it passes PageRank, but I do know that Google will extract that URL and use it for crawling, use it for discovery and use it for crawling. My guess is it probably passes some PageRank, but I've never tested that. So you can see here that what is Google looking for? They're looking for an A tag link, either relative or explicit, but they're also willing, and the last two on the lower left kind of surprised me a little bit. They're willing to look at relative URLs or relative paths in plain text.
Mhm.
And then on the right-hand side, we can see that if you're using anything other than an href, so even if it's in an A tag, but you're not using an href, they're saying that they cannot extract the URL from that code. So if this is accurate, what does this mean for the linking? And I put there for internal linking, and I'll just kind of step aside for a second, let you guys kind of
Well,
ingest this and say, assuming this is accurate, what does this imply, or what does this tell us, or what does this teach us?
Uh, historically, in the past, Google has crawled JavaScript links. So if they don't now, then Google has been changing that part of the ecosystem. The other thing is, the idea of what Google can follow and can't follow is a good solution to this problem. And a lot of the online stores where I see the infinite crawls, the most common case is that the faceted navigation and the add and remove to cart, those things are all A tags, which Google crawls. And so if you don't want Google to crawl them, you make them a button with an onclick operator, and then your infinite crawl problem goes away. And so maybe these other cannot extract would be alternative implementations of using a button with an on click. Um, and so, that part is good, but I think the real solution, because Google's going to have all of those URLs and they're probably out in the world somewhere because people scrape Google and put it into blog posts, and those URLs are going to live on forever. I think the real thing you need to do, if you can, and if you're Shopify, you can't, but if you have a custom store, you can. Uh, just don't show Google things they shouldn't be getting into. If if the user agent is Googlebot, just don't draw the faceted navigation. Don't draw the add to cart button or view cart button. Googlebot doesn't need a shopping cart. And so it's totally reasonable and safe to say, if it's Googlebot, don't draw faceted navigation, don't draw the add to cart, don't draw the search form. That's the best one, because Google can't do the wrong thing. You're literally taking away Google's opportunity to do the wrong thing, and they don't get a chance to do the wrong thing. And that's the best solution, I think.
What's interesting is I saw this slide a while back when Charles was going down this rabbit hole. We talked about this a little bit. I saw some of the slides. What's interesting to me is a couple of things. One, it's saying on the left-hand side, the first two say an href that's inside an A tag, they can extract. But on the right, an href that's inside the span tag or some other tag, they can't extract. Now I'm wondering if this comes down, it's like Ted's no index zones where you test and say, hey, can they find a keyword here? Are they not looking for links there? Because they could certainly extract it. I mean, it's not complicated. That's
Well,
clearly a URL.
I think on the engineering side, it's an artifact of the technology. So Googlebot is an instance of Chrome.
Mm,
And so they're rendering the page out to 4 seconds, and then they have a DOM. And then they need to parse the DOM in an efficient way. So that's probably going to use some form of like CSS selectors and libraries that are better than things like JSoup. And those selectors are often things along the lines of, A tags with an href attribute and return the href attribute.
yeah.
And so it'll scan the document tree and find those instances. And so when you use router link or onclick, uh, it's not looking for those attributes. And when
Mhm.
you do the span href, it's not looking for a span with an href, it's looking for an A tag with an href. And so that's kind of the nature of the document parsing.
So you both read my mind. Lee, one of the things I was thinking about is just like Ted has his index zones and non-index zones. I'm thinking I'm going to come up with a list of crawl zones and non-crawl zones. And we stumbled across this. I stumbled across this a little bit a couple of months ago when we talked about Google extracting links from schema. And I ran a weird test, and the test kind of got a little messy, mainly because I launched in the middle of an update. But the test got a little messy. It didn't pull exactly like I wanted to, so I have to go back to it. But yeah, the question is like, okay, if I put a URL here or in this way, will Google see it and extract it? What if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? And will Google extract these things? Will it, is this a crawl? Is this a crawl zone, for lack of a better word, or not a crawl zone? Will Google crawl a URL if it finds it like this? Will Google not crawl a URL if it finds it like this? Because I'm really starting to get interested in what can, again, that's what I always find interesting is what can Google do and what can Google not do? And once we understand that, then it gives us some real power and things that we can do to our site to fix problems. Like Ted said, with they they removed our parameter tool, which was very, very helpful. So now what do we do? Now how do we figure out how to work around it? Um,
Well, I'm also staring at this and thinking, okay, are there sometimes advantages rather than doing a href to do the a router link? So since Google's not going to see it, are there things that I could do for a user where I might not want, Google to see, or credit that particular thing? Are there ways to do that, kind of gives me the SEO that I want, but the user experience that I want as well?
I
Yeah,
can think of all kinds of reasons. Like to Ted's point, just not letting Google see the element at all,
Yeah.
that's ultimately the solution. I've worked with lots of folks that either say they either cannot, or they say they can't, probably because they don't know how to. Um, and then the next point is, well, can we do this? I'll say, well, I'll ask them, can you do an on click? And they'll say, oh yeah, we can do that. I can go into the code and do that. Okay, great, let's do that. Any page that you don't care to rank. So the cart, show my cart, register, log in. None of those things you necessarily want Google ranking. So why put an Ahref link?
Mhm.
And I would even suggest, although I haven't tested this, does this give us a way to go back and do siloing? Remember the page sculpting and siloing that people used to do? What if you use these as ways to page sculpt and silo?
yeah.
Don't know if you can, but maybe you can.
Absolutely, you can, because when you turn those faceted navigations and add to cart links into buttons, now Googlebot is only going to efficiently crawl the default sort order of each category, and it's going to get through all the default sort orders of the categories in its effort instead of doing all the combinations of sorting in one single category. And so, yeah, it totally is, you know, it's going to be sculpting as far as the Google crawl and the crawl budget. That's where you're going to really see the value.
And Ted, you mentioned the DOM as well. So they had several slides about that, and I'm putting together a deck for that as well. It talked about how they read the page, when they look at the DOM, different sections of the page they consider valuable and invaluable, or not valuable, I should say. So that I'm putting that together, but I have to do some research because I have to better understand what I don't know much about the DOM
And
and processing that. So
yeah, and the DOM is an interesting one. You know, Google went a direction I wouldn't have thought they would have gone in the engineering by using the DOM. They get the rendered HTML, but if they were just using the raw source, they could use what's known as a sax parser, where they wouldn't have to hold the whole page in memory. They can just look at, you know, individual lines of code. And it's very efficient to use a sax parser. It's probably, you know, 100 to 1,000 times more resource intensive to load the whole page in memory and render it over time versus just scanning tokens as a stream from the raw source. So they could, you know, potentially, you know, save, you know, 90% of their crawling resources by switching to SAX from using DOM, but they'd lose the rendered outcome. Um, yeah, you know, it's interesting the choices they made.
So I think we've talked about this in the past, and I know I've seen slides similar to this in the past. What really surprised me was on the lower left-hand side, the relative non-linked URLs. So you better believe I'm testing this because that blows me away that they're actually crawling that. That means they have to identify slash and then a word as a URL. And then that suggests to me, well, I
Well,
don't
so
want to say it,
I'm just
but
going to
yeah,
say
this
you need to set this up so you do the does it crawl and does it boost. You have to do both sides of that because you know that's going to be the next question.
that'll be the next question indeed. So, oops, can't click. What's my takeaway? Don't rely or even trust the tags and directives. I've been saying that forever. Ted's mentioned that as well many, many, many times. Um, if Google could find the link, it'll discover it and it'll crawl it. If Google never sees the link, it can't discover it and it can't try to crawl it. So that goes back to number one, don't even draw it on the page. If you can get away with not drawing on the page, don't even draw on the page. If you have to put it on the page for whatever reason, if you don't know how to stop it from putting it on the page, then use one of these cannot extract processes. Um, I'm going to run tests to see which ones of these really work and which ones of these don't work. I can't believe they're all treated equally. I bet different ones are treated at different levels, but I don't know. I don't know what. If I had to guess, I'd say that the relative non-linked URL on the page is one of the last things that Google crawls, but I could be totally wrong. Um, and then I'd also want to know if I just put the URL in the code someplace in a comment, it is still going to try to crawl it.
You know, you
So
know, I have a hunch, if you go back to that slide,
yeah,
on the can extract, those last ones, they might occur because of document transformation. So when they convert Word docs and PDFs and RTF files, any of the links in those files during conversion might actually come out as text, and their way of following the document links would be supporting that. So I think on an engineering side, the capability is plausible.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna call
this
my
is
shot on this one. I'm gonna say that all five of those work equally because I think if they're extracting, and then they'll crawl later. So I don't see any difference why there should be a difference in these five if
okay.
indeed they do crawl them.
So since we're calling shots, I think let's kind of discuss a little bit then. So the test I'm planning on doing is there will be a page. I will have all these different kinds of links on it. And then all I'm going to do is look at the log file to see, does Google crawl this URL and which one gets crawled first? And when I think first, I'm going to be looking at in terms of days, not in terms of hours or minutes. Um, I
And
would, yeah, go ahead, Ted.
oh, I was going to say, I think it's a brilliant test, and I would just suggest a couple extra test cases of put the can extract links in a Word doc and a PDF and an Excel file and an RTF and a text file and see how Google handles those cases in those different document contexts.
Well, I've done some similar things with that. There are some linking strategies out there that people say, oh, you should, take these properties or these things and put links in here. And so I tried it over a year ago and didn't seem to help my pages. So I started doing some testing. I'm like, I can't even see Google crawling these links. So yeah, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here. Like I know I am. I'm going to start with the basic, the can extract and cannot extract, although I might put a few extra things into the mix just to see, just out of curiosity. Because again, those lower left-hand corner ones, it implies a few things that I don't know if it's true or not. So I want to try a few things out. Um, but yeah, if Google doesn't, if you are having problems like this, it ultimately boils down to Google can find your links. Google's finding links to pages that you don't want it to find, either old pages, non-canonical,
And
you
it's
name it, Google's
and,
finding it.
and it's often a lot of URLs for the exact same page.
So I have a client I'm out with, they have a register page, and every time you go to the register page, it puts a new parameter at the end. And so Google has found
Random number.
yes, pretty much. And I don't think it's random. I think technically, so it's a database, and there's literally tens
Session,
of
it's a session
thousands.
number or something,
Yeah, session ID, which is a random number.
It's a little bit better than a random number. I think it's just but
All
it's in the
right, a
tens of thousands.
universally unique random
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. But that's a problem. Like every time someone went to the register, every time Google would crawl the register page or go to the register page via a different path on the site, and the register page was, guess what? On every single page of the site, Google was finding tens of thousands of links it didn't need to. Um, so yeah, it does. So it isn't always facets. It isn't always e-commerce sites. It can be, non-e-commerce sites. And this was not an e-commerce site. This was a directory site. Um,
perfect.
I don't have too many slots left if anyone's interested. Little side note, something I never really called out because I like to be kind of clever and probably too clever for myself, is the QR code on the right-hand side. You can scan it at any time and you'll be able to book some time with me. Everyone gets a free 30 minutes, free consultation. If you need to chat, I'll talk to anybody for a few minutes and figure out if there's something I can help you with or something I can't help you with. Like I said, I only have a few slots left, and definitely starting 2026, I am doing away with legacy pricing. So anyone who is contacting me through Fight Club, I was giving you legacy pricing. Anybody who contacted me in the first couple of months, I was giving you legacy pricing. That is going away. I've gotten a little too busy now, and I can't give away legacy pricing, so I'm going to get expensive, which I'm sure Lee is happy to hear because he's always telling me to be more expensive.
Yeah.
All right, I'll
And
give you back the.
a free half hour to talk about your biggest problem. And I think you'd be crazy to not take advantage of that if you're fighting something right now.
I've solved people's problems in less than half an hour. This is going back a couple months, but a woman reached out to me and said, I'm having a lot of trouble. I don't know if I can afford to hire you constantly. And I said, well, what's your site? And she's like, here's my site. And I looked at it and I'm like, all right, well, within 5 minutes, I said, here's your problem. You're rendering it 100% via JavaScript and Google can't see the site. You're blocking all these resources. Fix this and your site will be better. Um, and that was literally a 10-minute check on my side. So if I can fix someone's problem in 5 to 10 minutes, I will happily do that.
There you go. Best offer online. All right, let's look at some questions here. All right. Question for the end of the show. I have a stipend to attend an SEO conference this year. Are there any left on the calendar that you guys know of? Well, there's going to be SEO rock stars. I know that's going to be in Dallas.
Is it? I haven't heard anything from that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I haven't heard anything one way or the other.
I think Dory's just now starting to reach out to people.
Ah, okay.
Um, and let's see, there's SEO spring training. That's going to be another good one. I know Kyle Roof is going to redo his conference over in Europe. Um,
Yeah, Lisa
yeah.
has a recent agency fast track conference in January. That's another good one.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of them. I think there's uh yeah, a lot of opportunities for you to get out and network and learn some new things and talk shop. And so yeah, I think that's great. And if your company is doing that, then yeah, maximize the opportunity because when you get to know other experts, you have people that you can consult with and you can bounce ideas off of, and you can talk about the biggest problems on your plate. And those are important resources in our industry. Nobody, and I mean nobody, knows it all. Not even us.
Hmm.
So,
Especially yes.
yeah, I ask for help a lot, and I am wrong a lot. And so, if you feel like you're wrong a lot and it doesn't work a lot, well, you're not alone. So trust me, most of my SEO tests don't work out. But a lot of my SEO does work out because I failed a lot of tests. So
You figured out what worked.
oh, yeah, I know a thing or two, and Lee knows a thing or two, and Charles knows a thing or two. And together we know more than we would have known alone. And so that's what you want to find.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. See, JP says, funny that Google doesn't want us scraping Google, yet they scrape us, LOL. Um, they have a lot of cost, so there's that. I always tried to err on the legitimate side of their terms of service, so my tools were always piloted by a human being doing the search, like in Cora. There's a human being typing in the search and saying search. And so it's always been one human being manually typing in the search in my product. And so, in that sense, my product was like a web browser. Um, and then when the tool needs to go to all the different websites that we're ranking, well, that's a different story. That's not Google. That's all these different websites. Um, and yeah, what they're doing now is really complicating the ability to try to keep their terms of service in line. Because if they give us a bullshit answer we have to pay for, and they make it impossible to comply with the terms of service, and what's left for the world, you know? All right. Question for end: is disavow tool helpful? No, not anymore. Despite Google talking heads saying no. Let me put it this way: even when it was in play, I only ever had two occasions where it made any sense at all to even try to use it.
Mhm.
So if this is something you're thinking you could use on the regular or use a lot with one client, that's not what it was for. And so I think a lot of people did a lot of harm to themselves rushing to use it. Um, and so I personally suspect it doesn't work because Google doesn't even want to support the URL parameter tool. So I'm sure they really don't want to support something that's even more popular like the disavow tool. So my guess is probably not going to work out well for you. But technically, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, well, a number of different SEOs that I've talked to will use the disavow tool. What they do is when they get a new client, they delete the disavow file to recover all the spammy links. Because the truth is, most of the links that people think are spammy are just irrelevant. The days of me going, you know what, I hate Charles. I'm going to send him a million Viagra links. Now it's not going to do anything, or it might even boost him, slightly. That's the thing. So everybody looks at this and goes, man, this is a really crappy looking link. But as Ted goes on and on about, the average internet link is a crappy link. So you can't disavow those and, take away the power in the link graph, coming to your site. So I would tend to avoid those unless you are absolutely certain that you had a toxic link. And usually those don't come in large batches. So
Yeah, and here's the mathematical proof. Logarithmic scales are powers of 10, and PageRank is a logarithmic scale. And so PageRank is built on the averages. Case
mhm.
closed. And if you do a backlink analysis of Walmart or Amazon, you know what you're gonna find. Let's see. For a site that has possible negative SEO, heavy spam links, should it be used? I mean, if you use it, here's my recommendation. Only use the disavow a entire domain feature. Don't put a bunch of URLs in there. Say this one .lol or .it domain or, this one I just want to block unilaterally. Um, and because that's the only context in the disavow file usage that I ever think I might have gotten a good outcome with. And everything else didn't work for me. So that's why I'm saying if there is one thing you're going to do, but in that case, it was a case of a scorched earth website being redirected to my client's store. And so that scorched earth website was penalized into oblivion and then redirected to my client. And then I disavowed that entire domain, and then the everything came back within about 5 to 7 days. Uh, but but it might not have been the disavow. It could have been that Google detected the spam over the course of that time and automatically resolved it themselves, and the disavow did nothing. But we are in such a panic that we did everything plausible that made sense to try. And so that's the only case where I would say it's even worth gambling with. Other than that, I just wouldn't do it. Um, let's see. And I know a lot of people disagree with me, but you know, evaluate for yourself. You know the risks. Um, if our most important market is the United States, should we move the hosting to the US? Right now, we have it in France. Um, there's small benefits to that. The speed of light is pretty quick. The speed of the routers not as quick as the speed of light, so it kind of depends how many hops you have to go through. Um, but in general, how much traffic do you have? If you have an Amazon worth of traffic, then that kind of adds up a lot. If you have the average electrician kind of traffic, then, you're talking about a couple pennies a year doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, if it's messing up your geo relevancy, then maybe, but that would be hard to prove, and I haven't seen any cases of that. Uh, so, I'm leaning towards the nah, probably isn't worth it unless you have massive amounts of traffic. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I haven't played in that particular, with that particular question before, but what you said makes sense, unless I saw that things weren't quite working. And the other thing you can do is you can stick it on a CDN like Cloudflare, and then you don't have to do anything. Then it's going to pick the closest server, to wherever your traffic is coming from. So, um,
Yeah, and static website hosting in Amazon S3 is super cheap. Your hosting there would be like, 17 cents a month.
So I'm going to say, I say it's a factor, and I'll tell you why in a few seconds. I have a cheat sheet in front of me, but it's probably not a huge factor. And the reason I say that, so this question tickled something in the back of my brain, and here is a slide from, let me get myself out of the way, from the Google presentation. Oh, am I sharing my wrong?
it's
Yeah, you guys
coming.
can see the slide, right? Yeah.
Here it
There
is.
it
Um,
is.
Number three, server location, IP address of the server seems to be a geo-targeting factor, according to Google in the Search Console Live deep dive.
But let me throw this out just for curiosity's sake. Do you sleep with these slides, Charles?
I do. I told you I went down a rabbit hole. This is part of going down the rabbit hole. As soon as I scanned, I'm like, wait a minute, I remember seeing a slide about that, but I couldn't remember whether it was positive or negative. Um, but according to Google, the IP address of it's the I so it's not the server location, it's the IP address of the server. So if you somehow could spoof or somehow trick Google into thinking your IP address from France is really US or Mexico, then that's all that matters. And my guess would be it's probably based on the ASN that it's just a word I learned about a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, that's the group of IP addresses. It may be even based on that and not the IP address, but I don't know. I'm just conjecturing based on what
I
I'm seeing on this slide.
I have doubts because the amount of error that would introduce would be astronomical. WordPress hosting, Wix hosting, Squarespace hosting, Shopify hosting, cloud service hosting, all of those would give incorrect answers on the geo relevancy.
So true, but the key word at the top of the slide is factors. So I totally get where you're coming from,
Yeah.
Ted. Is like it clearly isn't the mo that's why I said initially I said it's a factor, but it must not be super
Now,
super powerful.
now here's the other thing. When any of us got a web server, a VPS, or a shared hosting thing, did we set it up in our home or did we find a good one online somewhere and we probably don't even know where it is? Like GoDaddy, for example. And so I can't imagine that the IP location of the web server means anything at all. It's just I think I think this is a case of somebody at Google thought it seems so sensible and reasonable that it must be true, but they haven't tested it or looked into it enough. But yeah, if Google wants to geolocate by the server, I mean, that's a whole lot of error. It might explain a lot.
I would go out and say if you're doing everything else right, and everything else would be hreflangs, ccTLDs, things like that. I would doubt the IP address is what's making or breaking your SEO.
Yeah.
Um, and because, as Lee suggested, I do sleep with these slides, and I've gone through many different blog posts. The only time this is mentioned is on this one slide, but I did remember it because it popped
Yeah.
out at me,
Yeah.
and it was one of those things. But they talk about hreflangs, and they talk about sitemaps, they talk about all these other things. But they did mention it on this slide, and I did remember it, so I felt I
Yep.
might as well share it.
Well,
Yeah.
no, that's great. I mean, that Google said, and I have doubts, and now people know and can decide for themselves.
Yeah. So the question does it matter? Google claims it's a factor. Is it an important factor? My guess would be it's a very low factor. Think of it like this. If you put a certain keyword in your title tag, in your H1, in your content, by not putting it in the footer of your page, does that hurt your page? Eh, what are we going after? Like how competitive is this? Probably not. It's probably not what's making or breaking anything. But technically, is the content in the footer of your page a factor? Is it technically an index zone? Yeah, technically it is.
Let's see, where did I leave off? Um, oh,
Junior
here we are.
SEO, yeah.
I'm a junior SEO trying to learn the skills. Clint, Lee, Charles, and Ted, can you tell me about the moment when you actually started getting good at SEO? How can I do the same trip? Well, my story, as shortly as possible, because it can go on for hours, is I started testing because I didn't know what worked. So I was new to SEO. There were many conspiracy theories, and everybody said everyone else is a quack and doesn't know what they're talking about. So I was like, okay, time for some science. And I asked my employer for the privilege of experimenting relentlessly on the company's smallest, lowest revenue store, with the promise that any good discoveries I find that we'd execute on the other 15 stores. And so I got that okay to do it. And so then I could try things and go, nope, that didn't work. Let's try this other one. Nope, that didn't work. Let's try, what Lee said. Oh, hey, that one worked. And then I go to the management team, I think we should do X to the other 15 servers. And we do X to the other 15 servers, and boom, revenue goes up. Ted, you're a genius. Then I go back to my server, my little server, and I start testing more theories. Does this move the needle? No. Does the thing Charles said move the needle? Oh, it went up. Hey, management, I think we should do X to the other 15 servers. And very quickly, every time I went to management, they'd get excited because I always had the Midas touch. And it's not that everything I did was right, it's that everything I tested, I only brought the successes to them. And
Mhm.
so my success rate with management was through the roof. Within 2 years, I was director status at the company. And so I started as just entry level web developer. And so, yeah, testing, it works.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing. A different version of the same story. For 10 years, I had my head up my ass, and I would just listen to, anybody that was had a platform or was a tool provider. And then one day I just got fed up and said, to hell with it. I'm going to take the skills that I had that I use in my day job at that time and just apply them to SEO. Started looking at who was testing out there. I was replicating some of their tests to see who knew what they were doing and who didn't know what they were doing. And it wasn't long before you start to develop some knowledge that you can apply and get the wins. And then over time, with more testing, you get more things, more tools in your tool bag that you can apply and get wins, more wins and faster wins. And then I'll also point out that When COVID hit, my wife was miserable in her construction job. And I said, hey, why don't you come, do SEO with me? And finally convinced her to come over. And the first thing that we did with her is like, forget everything else. Let's learn a little HTML, and then you're going to start setting up tests. And then as she started to set up tests, she started to see, first off, what are all these factors? What are all these zones? What the hell does this mean? How does Google treat certain pages? And then when we finally unleashed her onto SEO groups, she was looking and going, why do people do it this way? Why don't people test and figure it out for themselves? And every major SEO that I know has a version of this story. That's when they knew. It's because when you can prove for yourself that if I do this, it's going to move things, and I can spot the problems and change them and move things in the direction that I want them to go. And it's all because you've tested it yourself rather than just relying on what Ted says or Charles says or what I say. We're wrong a lot, with the new stuff that we do. I mean, I was joking earlier. Last week I had a test and I showed Charles, and he called his shot. He said, I think it's going to be this one, that one, and these other two are going to come to the bottom. I predicted a different order for a different reason. We were both fucking wrong. And that's the nature of testing, but we're still trying to dive down and figure out, how that mechanism works. And so eventually we'll know, but along the way, we're going to be wrong a bunch. So I would just say test.
If you're not into testing, then an alternate, and this is basically testing, make a site and try to monetize it. That is an accelerant for learning SEO. When you have your own website and your own potential, you get that first $1, or heck, you get that first 5-cent click, and it's like, ooh, wow, look at that. And then that'll, and you're never going to feel like SEO. I'll be honest, this has been a bad week for me. I'm getting beaten up left and right on every site that I've got. I feel like I'm getting beaten up. So you're never going to feel like you know it. You're always, at least for me, I always feel like I don't know anything. And then I'm like, oh, I'm a genius. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm like, nope, I don't know anything. So
All right. Let's see. Um, let's see. Cloud stack links like Amazon, AWS, etc., linking to your main site, non-tiered, how much do they help? Uh, and also, is it dangerous if it's 40 links out of your first 100 links acquired? I doubt it. 40 links is such a small amount. I consider 40 links to be a tie with a zero. The reason I think that 40 and 0 and 19 and 137 are all a tie is we need a standard candle to even compare them. And the standard candle I like to use is how many referring domains would you get from one decent press release? And the answer to that seems to be around 500. And so all of those numbers are closer to zero than they are to one. And that's why I put them in a tie condition. And so what you're telling me is I'm going to do something that's going to read a zero on the scale. Should I be afraid of it? And my thought is no, everybody else is doing things much bigger. Um, so the let's take a look at this. As far as cloud stacks go, there are basically two paths that you can use, either one or both. So I guess three paths uh, to get some kind of value out. And so one of the paths is if you use a lot of different cloud providers, you're getting different referring domains. And so that's a signal that we do see value from. So there is some value, even though they don't have a lot of page rank, they give you some diversity signal. The other path is about relevancy. So you can control these documents on the cloud to deliver some diversity and relevancy combined. So that would be the other thing, is controlling the context to which you're getting those signals. Lee, you're kind of more of an expert on this. How else can people benefit from these?
Well, I mean, the links there, I think the key is, generally speaking, is, how unnatural is it? Like you do a press release and everybody says, oh man, then you'll have 500 press release links. Won't that be a footprint or a problem? No, because legitimate businesses do that all the time. They'll put out a press release going to a page, and the anchor text on a press release is the same. It's 500 of whatever the anchor text is that you choose. You're going to have 500 of those. Now, 40 links, nothing. 40,000 links, that's a footprint. So somewhere between 40 and 40,000, there's a threshold. Just think about it in those terms. And, just don't do stupid things like, jack it up and always think more and more and more is better. Use something that is reasonable, something that you've seen other people do and get away with. I love Ted's, if they can do it, why can't I?
There
Generally
is a
speaking,
reason.
that's good advice. Generally, it's good advice. It's not always, but yes. Go ahead, Ted.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say there is a reason why they can do it and you can't. I was just saying that the question is important.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and yeah, scale ruins everything. All right. But also keep in mind that PageRank is built upon the averages because it's a logarithmic scale. And the averages are quite low in quality. And a new website does not have a backlink quality problem. A new website has a no backlinks problem. It's a quantity problem. So yeah, make sure you're solving the right problem at the right stage of your website's development.
So I heard a story one time. There was an actress who got a role, and it was a role in a television show. She did very well. And then she was offered a role in a different show for a similar kind of character. And she told her manager, I don't want to be typecast. And he said, you have to be known before you can be typecast. Take the role. And it's the same thing. Before you have to worry about getting bad signals to your site, Google has to know about the site. It has to crawl the site, has to index the site. Don't worry about getting, bad backlinks if you don't have any backlinks. I'm not saying go crazy with 40,000 links from a Fiverr gig or something, but you know, don't you got to worry about the right problem at the right time, like Ted said.
Exactly.
All right, let's see. Do any of you test if unlinked plain text URLs pass some page rank? Um,
I
you
haven't.
know, I think we've tested in the distant past if they get crawled
Mhm.
and do they become discovered? Can a new page be discovered that way? And I believe the old wisdom was yes, you can get discovered that way. Um, and that would lead me to suspect that the URL mention is probably in the link graph, because usually things that get crawled are in the link graph. Um, so my hunch is that if it gets crawled, it's probably in the link graph. It probably passes PageRank, but I can't know for certain unless I can see Google's source code,
Mm.
or I can run a big enough test to move the
That's
needle
why I
of.
was excited about Charles' test earlier, with the mentions on the page, and the link fragments and things like that. Because that's what I said, test will it boost? Because I know that's a common one, and it's not a ton more work if he's going to set up the pages to set up, pages that they're pointing to see if it can move them.
So I did run a test on do mentions pass page juice. Quick answer is yes, but not a lot. What I did is I had a page, I had a spammy tactic that I'm not going to share, where you can put URLs on lots and lots of pages. I did that, and when I say lots, I'm talking, thousands of pages. I did that, and I could get a page crawled and indexed. and a different page that wasn't ranking consistently. It would drop in and out of the rankings. So when you look at Search Console, you'd see you have rankings, then you'd go like a week with no rankings. It got it consistently ranked. Didn't increase the rankings, but it was consistently being crawled, indexed, and ranked for certain keywords. So short answer is yes. Long answer is it's not super powerful. You'd have to have a lot of scale. And even then, it's only going to be so good.
All right, let's see. Prove me wrong. Google will never go full AI mode because it would show only a limited number of businesses for most queries. A single AI answer funnels all the traffic to a few companies. I think here's the thing
Keep
though.
going. There's more. I'm just saying. He's
Oh, okay. Making Google rely on a smaller pool of companies for their ad revenue. It's like killing off thousands of ducks laying golden eggs. Yeah, I mean, there could be implications on the whole pay per prompt side of things. But here's what I think Google is seeing, and there was a comment out of Google in the past week on SE Roundtable where they implied that searchers don't care about 10 blue links as much as they used to. And what I find anecdotally is when I get outside of the circle of technical geeky marketers, when I get to the normies, um, they feel like when they search Google and get 10 blue links, that there's probably one or two of them in there that are genuinely trying to help them, and the rest of them are trying to make a buck. And so when they see the AI mode, to them, it's like they've found the one that's trying to help them without having to filter through the make a buck sites. And so they feel it's less effort and more direct to helpful information. And I think Google's probably seeing signs of that in their data, which is why they're leading statements that searchers aren't as interested in 10 blue links anymore. So, I'm not saying it will change, but I'm saying it kind of looks like it's going in that direction at the moment. So whatever that ends up meaning. What do you think, Lee?
I think here, I mean, we can't prove you wrong or right on the question like this, but I think that what's the driving force is what will the market tolerate? So it's ultimately the users, because users come visit and click on ads, and that's Google's moneymaker. So if they can shrink it down, or and not lose any money, they'll do it. If they can pop stuff in the AI overview and not lose money, they'll do it. If they could put 27 ads on a page
They'd
and
love that.
not drive users away, they'll do it. So it's
Nothing but ads.
nothing but ads.
Lee
Exactly.
said the magic word. I have to do the Pee Wee Herman thing where we all scream because Lee said it's money. Can
Yes.
Google if Google can monetize it, they will do it. So if they figure out a way to monetize nothing but AI and monetize it so that it's just as well, if not better than their current model, they're gonna do it. No question. They'll do it tomorrow. Not even
Yeah.
and never look back.
But that requires, the marketplace, when you go to search for Google, to be happy with what they're finding there and not abandon ship for some other port.
So being a cynical person like I am, they don't want a happy marketplace. They want a marketplace that accepts what they do. Let's use
Yeah.
the example of McDonald's. Does McDonald's care that everyone's walking out happy? They'll say they do. No, really, all they care is they just need people that return regularly and accept what they give them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Because
Yep.
nobody's arguing that McDonald's has the best burgers out there.
nope. Nobody says it is, but they said it's consistent, and that's what people want.
And
And
they've
if so, it's
sold
Google.
more of them than anybody
Yeah.
else.
All right, let's see. The developer said too many filters to make them all buttons. Can I do it selectively, like the frequent ones on templates? Would it make some difference? or just copium on my site. So this is regarding infinite crawls of Googlebot getting into things that shouldn't. And
Give the
here's the
developer
thing.
a quarter, tell him to call his mother and say you're never going to be a programmer. Because
Yeah,
what the developer is telling you, I'm sorry, that triggers me. That really triggers me because what the developer is telling you is that it's too much work. I don't want to have to do it. Not that it's not the right way to do it. Not that it's not the most effective way. It's too much work for me to do. Do I have to do it? Why don't we just make Google change or Lee just optimize some other way? Just do SEO a little differently so that I don't have to do my job and that everyone else has to revolve around me. It drives me crazy. I've heard that so many times from so many developers. Yes, you have to change every darn link. If you
Now,
don't, Google will find it.
if we
That's
go
all
back,
Google does is find links.
15 minutes in the show notes, Charles said, I'm having a really crappy week with a bunch of sites. I'm guessing there's a developer somewhere or
No, there's
two.
not. But when you're having a crappy week, and then there was that straw. That straw broke the back. And
That
no,
was
I
the
don't want to hear
one.
that garbage from a developer. Because the developer didn't even say, if a developer came to me and says, look, I just can't do it with our platform. All right, what can you do? Here's what we're trying to accomplish. And that might be the better way to communicate it with the developer. Say, look, here's what we're trying to accomplish. If you have any links to these resources, Google will find it, Google will crawl it, Google will index it. How do we stop that? And the developer may come back, oh, well, why don't I just do this? And it's like, okay, great. Everyone's happy. But what triggers me so much is when I have had developers, they essentially don't want to do the work. Like, oh, that's too much work. We don't want to have to do it because traffic and doing well in SEO is not my KPI. My KPI is downtime on the site. My KPI is closing tickets, and your one ticket would be way too much time and energy. I'd rather close 10 little insignificant tickets in the week than your one big ticket because my KPI is closing tickets.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think you're not seeing the problem correctly, and so I want to fix your perspective. So think of an infinite crawl as a black hole. Whatever goes in is not coming out. All right. And it's not that you have one black hole to contend with, you have many of them. And so it's really precarious. But if you leave even one of those black holes there, AKA you leave even a single path to an infinite crawl, Google will get stuck in it and will waste your whole crawl budget in it. So
Yeah.
you can't even leave one.
Imagine if McDonald's, let's go back to McDonald's for a second, said it's too much work not to poison every hamburger we send out. What if we just poisoned every 20th hamburger, every 25th hamburger? Would that be okay? And it's like, no, you can't poison any of the hamburgers.
I think they allow that with like unknown meat parts. How
Well,
many parts per thousand?
the funny thing is the last argument that Honey had with the developer had to do with them trying to solve this infinite crawl by blocking entire segments of the website, like the category pages. And ultimately, they ended up blocking robots.txt because, Ted said, don't let them see things they don't need to crawl. And I'm like, I'm pretty fucking sure Ted never said that. I'm willing to stake my reputation on Ted never said that.
Yeah, what I say and what you hear can be two different things.
Mhm.
And that might be the case with this developer.
Yes.
The developer might have said something, but the thing that triggered Charles is what the marketer heard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they might
and
be
also the
different.
developer, and we run it all the time. Like when I say the word index, that means something different to me than it means to Ted, than it means to Lee, than it means to Clint.
Mm.
I think the better thing to do is tell the developer, here's the problem we're having. Google's crawling these pages. We don't want Google to ever find these pages. How do we keep Google? And then you start working on with a more productive, like, all right, how do we keep Google out? And they'll come back and say, why don't we just put it in the robots.txt and say, well, I'd like to, but if we go with Google's documents, even Google themselves says it's not a very good way of stopping things. We really need to keep Google from ever seeing the page link. How do we do that? And they might have a solution. They might, oh, well, I'm just going to do this. And there you go. It magically resolves the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe don't solve it for each individual link. Go to the parent container, the div that contains them all, and don't draw that. Get them all at once. So there is a way to be lazy about it.
I have to jump off to attend to an appointment, but I will say this. Leaving Fight Club, having seen Charles go off on a rant, I leave a happy man. See you guys.
It's why people
It's
come back. Have a
it's
good one.
I aim to please. Take care, man.
All right, we're almost to the end here. If you need to go, Charles, that's okay. I'm just
No,
gonna
now I'm all
finish
fired
out.
up. I can go for
Yeah.
another hour now.
All right, let's see. Google Search Console is showing duplicate without user selected canonical error for a URL pointing to an actual PDF install manual file. Why? How do I fix it? Um,
Is he saying the PDF manual is showing as a duplicate or
yeah, the URL to the PDF has been given this designation. Well, I think here's kind of what Google does in the background. So this is my understanding of their architecture. When Google finds a document that isn't HTML, so an Excel file, a Word doc, PDF, RTF file, XML file, whatever it ends up being, they have these things they call transformers that will try to turn the document into whatever format it is into an HTML version of that document, and then they continue processing it the same. So your PDF gets converted to HTML. Google's saying you don't have a canonical tag specified for it, which, I mean, I don't know how to put a canonical tag into a PDF. So it sounds like the PDF transformer should probably automatically put in a canonical for you so that Google can process it properly. So it kind of sounds like a bug on Google's end to me. How do you see this, Charles?
yeah, I wanted to see an example of this on my own sites. So I don't know how to do this, but supposedly you can send this information to Google via the in the header somehow. I don't know how it happens. I don't know. It's at a server level and I don't know. Um, what I would probably do if you're linking to, so if it's an install manual, if it's a PDF and Google's saying that this is the same as something else, my first question is, do you want to rank these PDFs? Because you could just not rank the PDF and there you go, problem solved. If it's something you want Google crawling and ranking though, then that's not going to solve the problem. Um, yeah, it sounds like a bug. I'd really have to see exactly what was going on, but it does. I agree with you, Ted. It does sound like a bug. Um, but I don't know. That's a good one.
Yeah, so there's yeah, it looks like there's a hack. It's not an actual way, but it's using the link colon HTTP header. Looks sketchy to me, but you can ask ChatGPT about it. Just ask, how can I set the canonical in an HTTP header, and it'll give you the technical docs for, doing it in Apache or Nginx. But you have to be able to modify your web server configuration to do it. So if it's a Shopify store or something, this isn't going to work for you. All right, let me get away from ChatGPT and let's see. All right. So, question. AI generated product pages that score an 80 plus percentage on pop, neuron, and Cora optimization, publishing two products a day and still struggling to get index pages, do not rank for any keywords. Sounds like a case of too many tools. Pick one and give it its best chance to succeed alone. And if it doesn't work, then try another one and give it its best chance to succeed alone. Because if you take too many experts' recipes, you will spoil the dish. So you just got to pick one recipe and give it a good, honest try instead of trying to merge, six recipes. Um, so that's my guess. And
Plus, some of those are on page. Like if you're just looking at the on page optimization, your on page optimization might be perfect, but if you're not getting indexed, that could be a technical issue. That could have nothing to do with your on page optimization. So um, you want to make sure if you're going to measure something, you're using the right tool. So if Quora tells me that my page is perfect, that's great. But Quora is just, Quora's again, or I'm sorry, not Quora, Pop. If Pop was telling me my on-page optimization is perfect, that's great. But all it does is tell me if my on-page optimization is optimized. It doesn't tell me if my page can be crawled, or how my links look. It doesn't tell me any of that information.
yeah, and Pop is a quick win tool. It looks at a few dozen factors, and Cora can measure up to 150,000 different factors. So
Yeah.
typically, when people move to Cora, it's after Pop has already failed. And I really like Charles's answer about it could be a technical SEO issue. I think that might be probable. So I would look for that stuff too. Um,
I ladder my tools. So what I'll do is, let's say, for example, I have a page and it's ranking, just not ranking well, or maybe ranking horribly. The first thing I'll do is I might do a quick pop analysis of it just to see what am I missing? How's my optimization? If it comes back and showing me that it's a 27% or something ridiculously low, then I'll take a lot of its recommendations and optimize it. If I then pull myself up into, let's just say, the page two range and I'm sitting there for months and I really haven't moved up, then I'll definitely apply core and say, all right, now we need a deeper level of analysis to what's going on in the page. If I know it's a page I've manually optimized already, then I'll sometimes just jump right to Quora. If it's a brand new page and or not even indexing, then I know it's not an on-page thing. It's probably something that's technical, and I gotta peel back the onion. Um, so
yeah, and another thing about the tools you said there, some of them may tell you that you're over optimized, and Cora will say, no, no, you need to add a lot more. And the difference in those recommendations is how the tool sees the page. And so, just understand that all tools, can break in some at some point, and all tools have limitations and use cases, and you got to kind of understand when you're getting, into one of those areas where you've hit the limit of a tool. Um, and so a lot of these tools, they're using headless Chrome to render the page, which is time equals 0. And Googlebot is actually using the HTML at time equals 4 seconds. And a lot can happen to a page with JavaScript in 4 seconds. So that's one way one tool might see one version of the page and another tool would see a different version. Another example is Googlebot will often use a 12,000 pixel tall viewport window. So if the SEO tool isn't doing that, then that's potentially a different amount of lazy load content being triggered and displayed in the rendered DOM. So if the SEO tool didn't use a 12,000 pixel tall window, that's going to be another big difference on why one tool says you're over optimized and another tool says, no, no, you need to add a whole lot more. And it becomes a thing where you have to think about, well, which tool is closer to correct? I know we can't know the mind of Google, but what's the best practice? And the best practice is the one that saw the page closer to how Googlebot saw the page is the correct one. And so quick win tools are great, but just know they're a quick shot in the dark. All right. And then beyond that, you need to start thinking about the context under which we're viewing the page and what the tool was designed to do, and how much is it measuring, how many differences can it show me. So, keep in mind that all tools have a place, but know their limits. Um, let's see. Interesting that the text that appears on a page that happens to look like a valid URL that Google and Charles's slide will pick up and follow. Curious, will that be treated as a link at any value? Yeah, I would suspect that if Googlebot crawls it, like if you made a web page URL that's an orphan, and the only way Google could find it and crawl it is through that text citation on another page. And then you look at the web logs and you see Googlebot crawled through it. Then I would say there's very good odds that it's passing some authority, because things that get crawled tend to be in the link graph. Um, let's see. Thanks, Charles. That's great firepower for tomorrow. What's tomorrow?
I think he's going to talk to his developer tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
The developer that didn't want to do all the programming.
Yeah, that's right.
And I warned him
Um,
to take a breath, and he mentions that one of his KPIs is not getting reported to HR. I said, yes,
yeah,
that's a wonderful KPI. So
yeah,
I,
keeping your job is a great KPI.
and I think this is what he's doing. I would just recommend, I think the way to approach it is to say, look, here's what we're trying to avoid. Understand that if Google finds the link anyplace, I think Ted's black hole scenario is a great example. Like, you don't want any black holes. Like, how many black holes can we have in our solar system? None, because you will have a problem eventually. And so the question is, how do we get rid of it? And maybe the solution is, look, we have 30 templates on our site, and I just can't do them all right now. And I'll say, all right, can we do the most important templates first and just work down the list? And maybe it takes a month to fix all the templates. That's acceptable. Like, we do what we can do. We can't fix everything in 1 second or in one moment. So, um, but they do all have to be fixed.
Yeah. So let's see the next one. So I went crazy with AI automation, and while I was building the system, I thought, why not automate it all? A lot of people will caution you against that. Honestly, I'll be honest here. I suck as a writer. I'm kind of a logical problem solver. I'm not a very good storyteller. And so because of that, I just feel AI writes better than I do. So, and I know AI is garbage, and I kind of feel like the content I had to author the text for was less uh, quality than what I could prompt out of AI now. Um, and so given that, I don't think what you're doing is bad, as long as it's, honest content about what you're offering and people can understand that, this is what you're offering and this is how they get it. I don't think it matters that AI did the description. If the truthiness of what you're offering is matching up with what people want, I just don't think it matters. What do you think, Charles?
I agree 100%. Google said a million times that they don't mind AI content, AI images. The key is, to your point, Ted, is it accurate? And the thing they keep bringing up is, does it provide any kind of unique knowledge or unique insight that some other page isn't doing? So, if you're just regurgitating the same stuff over and over again, then yeah, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to be a penalty, but it may not help you that much.
Let's see. Where did I leave off here? Oh, here we go. Um, let's see. Apache and htaccess file to tell Google the PDF is self-canonical. Yeah, there might be a way to do it with in there.
He says he got it
I
from Gemini.
yeah, I don't know. Uh, I don't necessarily know the best way to solve that problem, and it kind of sounds iffy to me. Duct taping HTTP headers, it might work, but I wouldn't count on it being load bearing forever. It might stop working at some point. So if you build that into your ecosystem, I'd build a way to test if it's still working at the same time.
I
Um,
I would set it up for that one PDF, then do an inspect on the PDF and see what Google says the canonical is, what the user declared canonical is, and if it says what you say it is, then okay, then it works. However, I would agree with you, Ted. I don't know how scalable. So if you got thousands and thousands of these PDFs, I don't know how well that'll work. Or if it works now, will it always keep working? I don't know. It feels
yeah,
like a band-aid, but it feels like a band-aid of someone else's wound. It's Google's wound you're trying to fix.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned that is it looks like it's not part of an official specification for how the protocol and technology is documented to be used. But it looks like somebody at some point made it work that way with just Google. And so that's kind of a contraption that probably isn't load bearing for all time. And so that's the danger. It might do the trick, but it might not always work because if that employee at Google's gone and somebody says, "What's this thing do? This makes no sense. Delete." then it's gone on you. And that's why we have standards is so they don't delete, the H1 tag. That's part of the standard. All right. So with that, thank you everyone. We'll see you next time. Hope you liked our show.
Great day, everybody.